Okay, everything is now live, and we can get started with the first committee, planning and zoning. Okay, good to go, Mr. Verlay?
Yes, please.
Okay, manager's update is the usual reminders. I don't really have anything new on any of these things. So I'm just going to tell you that's all I have and move on.
I'd
Okay,
like to
that's
speak
fine.
to the sidewalk inspection issue under your manager's report. I think we are having more active inspections of sidewalks as part of our Walkworks project.
Well, Dawn's handling that
Yeah, I know.
too. Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, maybe he could report to us an update on how that's going, because it's a significant part of the concerns that people raised is the inadequacy of sidewalks. There are a lot of issues around that I think we need to come up with a solution for, including the property owners have to pay for the sidewalk improvements and trying to find a way to help them do that.
Very good. And we're also trying to be concerned about in our comprehensive plan that sidewalks are an issue on how we're going to handle those. So that's something else we're thinking about.
But I'm done. So you can move on to Dawn, Bill.
Okay, okay, Don.
Hang on,
Okay.
hang on. I have a question. I might want to make a comment about the sidewalk. Can I have a second?
Yes, Marcus.
I mean, sidewalks are usually expensive. You know what Patty just said. She made it sound like very easy, like, oh, we just
Oh, it's not
tell
easy.
people. I know. Though it sounded like we're going to do it tomorrow, and I think we're not. It's hugely expensive, and I mean, it's an issue, I know, but you know, it sounded easy how you said, oh, we make the homeowners pay for it. I don't think we can do that easily.
No, I think what I meant to say is I would like to have some data about areas where sidewalk improvements are contiguous so that we can begin making a plan for doing some joint repairs and having some, I think some of the infrastructure grants that are out there will help to cover this kind of infrastructure improvement. But one of the things they want to know when you apply for that kind of money is how many linear feet of sidewalk upgrades are you talking about? And are they contiguous where you can do a contract for multiple sidewalks under one contract and have multiple people covered by it? So I wanted to make sure we get the basic information in hand, which is why I'm asking Mr. Brenzel if we have a map of which sidewalks are in compliance and which ones need work.
I just want to stress the point. I'm against sending people letters. Hey, you owe us $10,000, $20,000.
I agree. I don't want to do that, and that's that's the approach the DOT uses as well. It's the property owners. But I think that isn't realistic, especially in our town where a lot of people are on fixed incomes. I don't think that's a good solution. But if we're going to get any alternative ways to do it, I need the information in terms of the linear feet of sidewalks that need repairs as a starting point.
Anything else, Don?
You there, Bill?
Yeah, I'm here. Anything else?
Not. You talking to me?
Yeah, Dawn, go ahead.
Yeah, Don, are you finished, Don? You have anything else to say to us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Last month, the Tree and Shrub Committee discussed how to increase some funds for tree and shrub, extra money. We hashed around a lot of things about fundraisers and so forth, but that kind of stuff does not get us enough income to what we need for the Tree and the Shrub Committee. But we did come up with one item that we thought that should be done, either a half or a mill earmarked for tree and shrub only, like we do for the roads, where we have a separate line item that money is to be put aside and can only be used for roads. And we'd kind of like to see the same thing happen for Tree and Shrub Committee, because these trees are getting old and they need a lot more work than what anybody realizes. I'm out there every day and I see what takes place. So that's what we come up with. So that's where we are with that.
They didn't want to put that in.
As of now, we got 75 trees that need pruned and 33 removals. So that's where we are, and that's what's going to probably be pretty close to what the bids are going to be. It's really about all that I have. Getting back to Patty on that sidewalk stuff, I did handle the Greensburg Pike. That is completed. Most people have done that, and that's a heavy walking area, which I thought that should be handled first of all, because there's a lot of traffic walkers on that road. Now, there are some other small areas which I have not measured any linear feet or anything else. Marion is one of them that needs to be taken care of. So I'm going to need some help and some guidance in that area as to what you might want or need for that to be taken care of.
Yes, Marcus, Bill?
I just want to make a comment about that $500,000 to buy more trees. I'm all for it to buy more trees, but I don't think we will raise taxes by $500,000 to buy more trees. You know, I think if you want to buy more trees, we have to find the other way to do it. I don't think we can raise taxes by $500,000. And, you know, it sounds easier again, like it is. You know, if you want to dedicate $500,000 for trees, we have to take it away somewhere, or we have to raise taxes. So again, it sounded like very easy to do, but I don't think it is easy, because we have to take $500,000 away from something else.
Yes, Bill?
I don't think we can dedicate $500,000 by ordinance or by law. I think we have to put it into the budget. Mr. Corbel can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I don't think we're able to do that like we did it for the roads years ago. Secondly, Mr. Branzell, when you met with the Tree and Shrub Committee, did you ask about the planters down on the Ardmore in terms of putting some perennials in down there that are simply attracting nothing but trash and so on? I brought that to your attention last month. So did you meet with them this month yet? And if you haven't, would you please discuss that?
I will do that, and that's on my plan for tomorrow. I'm meeting with the Tree and Shrub meeting tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. That's our meeting date. And because you and I discussed this after the last meeting, so that's why it has to go into this meeting coming up, and I'm going to get some ideas as to how they feel about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you can get trees from Tree Pittsburgh for replacing trees, and they don't charge you for them. They're usually 3-inch nursery stock that they grow in their own greenhouses. You have to ask for them, but we would have to arrange to plant them. We could probably get some volunteer assistance from one of the local community service organizations to plant some. I don't know if 33 trees is an excessive request. We'd have to stage it with the removal process.
Okay, I wonder if you're aware, behind the lodge, we have at least 20 stored, that we're taking out of the property that bordered where the new building is now. So we have those trees, which we've already planted 2 of those this year. One was up on Roxbury for a resident, and she's very pleased and happy with that. And one up at the pool. So that's where we stand with that. But we do have those trees available. You say that's Trees of Pittsburgh, Patty?
Tree Pittsburgh, it's an organization, Tree Pittsburgh.
Tree Pittsburgh, okay.
Mr. President, I just wanted to state for the record that the Borough Code does permit the levying of a tax for purposes of shade trees not to exceed 1/10 of 1 mil. Not that 1/2 or 1 mil, I think that Mr. Branzell mentioned. It would only be 1/10 of 1 mil. So just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. I knew there was some legal aspect that we had discussed in the past. I just wasn't sure of what the numbers were. Thank you for adding that.
Sure.
Frank,
As far,
Thank you. Yes, Frank? Frank, did you have something you wanted to say?
Unmute yourself, Frank.
Apologies, I was on mute. So Dawn touched on this, actually. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that we have at least 24 trees behind the rec center that we've had those back there now since we built the building. We've managed to plant, I think, 2 or 3 of them tops. Dawn, how many have we planted? 2?
2 so far.
Right. So, I mean, before we start talking about, raising millage, et cetera, maybe that's a long-term plan to think through that, but there are, we've got 24 back there that we have to go and plant before we start getting into, let's use what we have in terms of resources before we start thinking about, funding it through alternative sources. That was just my thoughts on it anyway.
Well, I agree with you, Frank, but the real problem lies with the pruning and the removals of these trees that we have in the borough. They're getting much older and they're starting to shed more dead limbs. It's getting a little bit crazy. Probably this year is probably the highest number that we've had pruning and removals in a long time that I can remember. So like I said, we have 75 so far that have to be pruned and 33 that have to be removed. Now, in that 33 removal also consists of trees behind the borough building, behind EMS, and some up at the pool area. So if you take those away, you're probably looking at about 12 residential trees that have to be removed. So like I said, we're going to need some help somewhere down the line somewhere.
Steve, did you have something you wanted to say?
I don't want to sound critical. This may sound critical. I don't know. This is not the first time we've gone through all this stuff that everyone's mentioning right here now. The problem is there is no plan and there is little money for dealing with pruning and removal first. You can't plant trees until you remove them. And we don't have sufficient funds dedicated toward that. We also are looking at long-term trees that are going to be a major problem, like the large oaks along Roxbury, for example, that are going to be a major problem both for maintenance as well as removal if we need to. And that's part of the problem with this whole thing. It ends up, we just talk around in a circle about this. And this is one of the notes I have in my long budget message, which we'll get to in finance, about trees. You really need to back up and take a look at what is your plan. And it's one thing to say, we're going to plant this, or, we want to dedicate so much money toward it, but it's another thing to actually have a plan as to what's going on, what trees need attention, how many there are that need attention. I don't know, for example, if the 30-some trees Don's mentioning for removal are all the trees that we have, or just the ones that are in the next segment, the next queue that we have for that. And so again, it's one of those things where you need to really back up and you need to have some kind of plan in place. And that's been part of a problem we've had because we don't have an arborist any longer. And Don's doing the best he can for someone who is not an arborist, but still there's an issue there. And that's something that needs to be looked at on a bigger basis rather than going around again with the same discussion, because this is not something new that we're discussing here. And what I'm hearing from everybody is nothing new either.
okay, I will commit to seeking either a grow grant or a Tree Pittsburgh plant for a plan for the ongoing maintenance and canopy repair and replacement for our borough. I think we need to have a study of, the condition of the canopy done in a systematic way with recommendations for what is required for maintenance and upkeep. And recommendations for replacement for areas. I think Alcoasand has grow grants that can be used for this as watershed protection. So I will look into that and try to get back to you people before the next meeting.
Thanks, Patty.
Hmm.
Anything else, Don?
That's all I have tonight.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Mhm.
The next area is a committee business report that I would like to make very briefly. We're trying to make Forest Hill pedestrian friendly. And as a result of our efforts, Patty has drawn up a tremendous comprehensive plan that we feel will help accomplish those objectives. So in order to try to find out ways to help us get there, we went to see Thursday, the 30th of September, around 1:30 SPC, Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. I've been there for about 30 years, and these people are very good. They know how to do regional planning. And if you don't know who they are, they work with local and state and federal partners to plan for continual growth in Southwestern Pennsylvania. SPC helps counties, cities, municipalities, townships access more than 35 billion statewide federal transportation and economic development funds associated to the region of 2045. They are enhancing our region competitiveness and a national global markets. And the gentleman that handles making sure that 35 billion gets distributed properly is a gentleman by the name of Ken Flack, which I know very well. We met in the hallway, and he said, Bill, there's a great possibility that there's some PennDOT money that I can get to help you guys accomplish your objective. And also that day we met with a gentleman by the name of Andy Rabel, who is the Director of Transportation and Planning, who talks directly to Harrisburg and talks to the PennDOT people. They have meetings there and discuss all the things going on in Western Pennsylvania. Also, Dominic DeAndres, we met with him. He's a manager of operations and safety. He handles most of the traffic lights. He can handle the fact that we want to slow down on Ardmore Boulevard. He can handle that conversation and thought. Also, there was Leanne Cheney. She's a transportation planner. And we did say something about bicycles. She's a bicycle consultant. And so she was there at the meeting to talk about things. Well, she thought more about bicycle. I talked to her after the meeting and she was talking more about it. So those are the people that we met with. And our mission was to try to see if we could get the comprehensive plan moving. And like I said, Patty has, and they all read it, we all did, and it's wonderful. It's fantastic ideas. So I don't know, Patty, you have anything else you want to say about what we did?
No, just that the comp plan was really put together by a pretty big team of people, over a course of 2 years. It wasn't just me. I mean, I'm uncomfortable with that because I know there were a lot of people involved in that process that put a lot of time in on it, including Rick Fosbrink, and several of council members participated too.
Okay, well, any questions about that? Okay, well, we're done.
Okay, give me a few seconds then and I'll move on to finance. As soon as I get my finance up here on my screen. Okay. Okay, I'm good to go, Mr. Mark, with the manager's update if
Yes,
you're
please.
okay.
Would you please proceed?
All right, I'm going to be sharing my screen here a few times.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I'm going to be talking about is my draft, the 2022 budget, but there's a couple of other things. First, first, I don't have anything for cash flow right now. I don't see any problem with cash flow. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's about average for where we are. And I'm basing that on how far ahead our revenues are for the year over expenditures in the total general fund budget. But I don't have that. I will try to get that out in an email to people later. Doing the budget is just a very, very busy time, and it always gets pressing the last couple of weeks of the month just before we're going to have this meeting. So I wanted to point that out. So I'm going to move on to really my first main point is the ARPA fund use. that I wanted to make you aware of, and I'm going to share my screen so I can show you. I hope I'm going to share my screen anyway. Show you what I have on here and show everybody what I have on here. Wendy went to the Government Finance Officers Conference for the state, and GFOA has come up with a calculation to take a look at the American Rescue Plan from the point of view of how much money potentially a community lost in revenue because of the pandemic. And what you have on the screen here and on your paper is just part of the worksheets that I used. And I'm not saying this is final, by the way. I really want to take a look at this again. I had Wendy glance at it. I want you to take a look at it. Possibly, if you want to see the spreadsheets, I'd be happy to get those worksheets to you to look at to make sure I'm right. But what you're supposed to do is take a look at 2019 as a base year, compare that to 2020, and try to come up with whether you had sufficient revenues based on what you did in the previous year before the pandemic. They told us to estimate a growth rate of 4.1%. They assumed that nobody was generally higher than that. And if you were higher than that, they wanted you to use that. But if you look at our average growth rate, probably 4% is close. So I used their recommended growth rate and tried to come up with whether or not we were ahead of or behind 2019 based on the pandemic. At the very bottom in red, you see the estimated amount of revenue reduction we had because of the pandemic. In other words, a negative 6.5% loss of revenue, or $513,318 loss of revenue. What's the point of all this? Well, the point of all this is that one of the things that is in ARPA, and I have this attached to the agenda in case you want to look at it. Unfortunately, my computer is not letting me go to that. Okay. This page was something I had given you before when we started getting information about ARPA. And if you notice, the third bullet, replace lost public sector revenue, is one of the things you're able to do if you want to with the funds you get from the Treasury, the money we've already gotten 50% of from the Treasury. Now, I'm not trying, by the way, to change your mind about moving from using it to fund sewers versus using it to give money back to the budget. But I wanted to make sure you were aware that that is one option. $513,318 is what they say based on this calculation. Again, I want to double and triple check this if you decide to use it. That's how much we were short because of the pandemic. And that's how much of the money that's coming from the Treasury you could put back into the budget to use for anything, because it's claiming that essentially we lost this kind of revenue. So I don't expect to discuss this in great detail. I ask you to take a look at this, look at the notes, Mar Dussel CPAs. I gave you a couple of notes from them also attached to this worksheet, note sheet that I gave you. Take a look at that. And if you'd like us to get a little bit deeper into it and double and triple check this to make sure our number is correct, that's another option you have in addition to using it for sewers. Any
Steve,
questions?
I did look at all of those notes, and I attended a seminar as well on the ARPA, and we talked about it at the PA Municipal League last week. I think we are wise to use it to cover our sewer repair obligation, but that didn't take the whole 500 and something, did it? I think it only took like 237.
If you were using it just for the Alcosan regionalization sewer line, I think it was about 250,000 or 240, right. Something like that was the estimate.
Can we put the balance of it into the general fund revenue, or do we have to do one thing with all of it?
No, you can mix it, match it however you want to, as long as again, I would, if you're going to go that route, I want to triple check this to make sure. I want you to look at more detail than we have time for today. You have time, and the Treasury has also pushed back the date and time when you have to give them the first summary, or whatever you want to call it, of the of this ARPA stuff. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. I'm going to stop sharing. I may have shared the wrong, I don't know, I may have shared the wrong page. You all saw the ARPA table there?
It's in the handout that you gave
It
me.
is in the handout, but I thought since there are people who are watching, they may want to see it too. So that's why I did that. But in any case, I would take a look at this and just review it. And I will put it on again in what is today? This is October. I'll put it on again in November, in case you want to discuss it. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let me move on to my third point. The S&P bond rating. I mentioned preliminarily to everybody last month that it looked like our bond rating was going to go up, but we didn't have official documentation on that right away. So what I sent to everybody, whoops, sorry, I'm pressing the wrong buttons on my screen here. And for some reason, this is not recording. I don't know if I accidentally shut the recording off or what. It's on YouTube though, so that's recording, I guess. Anyway, I gave you a copy of the ratings information that came from Standard & Poor's, and they raised our rating from AA negative to AA stable. They do this every year. This is our outlook here, AA stable. And I gave you some notes on the notes that I have for the notes I'm sharing with you on the agenda, which hopefully I'm going to share again here in the middle. The S&P, they say the rating reflects our opinion on the following factors for the borough: strong economy, strong management, strong budgetary performance, very strong budgetary flexibility, very strong liquidity, strong debt and contingent liability profile. You can read that, and council can read the full document. I'm probably going to ask if you're okay with this, Angela, to put this on the website under our finance page. I think it's something that we want to, and I will have a report for the meeting on the 20th added to the finance for this as well, maybe with these bullet points noted. But it's very positive. Certainly there's going to be other things that are going to happen up and down that will affect this next year. But for right now, we have one of the stronger ratings, and even AA negative was still one of the stronger ratings in the area. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know you haven't had a chance to read the document yet. I just gave it to you this afternoon.
Well, Steve, I thank you for your, strong hand on the management side, because I think a lot of the practices that we put forward in our town are modeled in other areas, and we've been able to hold to those for a long period of time. And I think it bodes well for our future.
Does anybody else have any other questions about that? Okay, my next point, before we talk about the budget, let me get the capital improvements plan out of the way. I updated the draft, the 2020 draft plan, to include the criteria I was using that I had told you about in previous finance committee meetings. I was using for how we were going to prepare the new plan. And what you have is this document, which I know is kind of small. This is a preliminary look at the capital improvements plan. The outlines highlighted in yellow are ones that are either new and there were only a few new projects or ones that were changes to existing projects. Everything else is the same as what is in the current capital plan. Okay, so this is not something, again, that you need to study in great detail or talk about in great detail right now. You should take a look at this again, talk about it in November, realizing once again that the capital plan is something that's a 5-year plan. It's ongoing. It's not something you're required to approve in December with the rest of the budget, even though I usually put it in the approval for the preliminary budget in November and the final budget in December for transparency's sake, and I put it all on the website. There's no way you're going to have, if you look at the bottom line for 2022, the estimated numbers are 769,000. And even with bond issue money, you're not going to have enough money to cover all these items unless we find some savings or whatever. The thing that concerns me the most, and I mentioned in every budget, I mentioned again, is that we never look at these years, the 4 years after the next year. I mean, people put in information in there, but I think I probably put more in there than anybody. And you really need to take a look at where things are and where they're going to be in 2026. And if these numbers are true in 2026, how are you going to afford $226,000 in that year, assuming that those things all are accurate? That's something that's an ongoing exercise, and why I don't think you should spend time talking about it a lot right now. I'm going to recommend the same thing for this plan that I recommend for 2021, and that's that you approve the whole plan. Take a look at the new items that are in yellow. I'm pointing over there because that's where I have it on my screen. I'm sorry, you don't know that. But anyway, take a look at the items in yellow, see if you agree with them or not. There are a couple of additional items that were added to this, including the Avenue L playground, the fire alarm system at the Public Works garage, which Mr. Thielacker, actually Jim Thielacker, wanted to comment on. I don't know if he's there or not. And the third thing, which I can't remember, but it's attached to your agenda.
Shelves for storage shelves for the Westinghouse Lodge.
Oh, yeah. Those are, no, I'm sorry. That's not what I had on there. No, that's something else that was put on different. What I had on there was the cameras at the Borough Garage. That technically is a capital item, and we have cameras in there. Oh, nuts. Everybody, okay. I need to somehow turn off chat for myself because this drives me nuts. I can't see things on my screen. Okay.
Steve, he's here if you want him to comment on that.
In a second. Yeah, Tom. The cameras from the Public Works garage are already funded. Okay. The detail is in the attached sheet, which I can't load on here right now. But the money was to come originally when we moved the building up here where I am now. Okay. But we didn't do that back then. But we still have money in the building fund. As you know, I'm not going to repeat why it's there, but it's there. And that's where the cameras at the garage will come from. Okay. But Jim had wanted to comment on this, the fire alarm, because he is particularly concerned about the fact that if we wait until 2022 to fund it, it may be a problem. I don't know for sure what you want to do, but Jim, if you're there, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Hi. Yeah, the only reason I just wanted to bring it up, we're probably looking at about a month down the road. We have drawings that we have to get done. That's probably going to take about a week to get done. They go to Chris up through Builder Underwriters. Dave Gillen will do the drawings for us at a cheaper rate that was on the slip from SSA. So the total cost is $8,660. That includes the drawings and all the work that has to be done to install the complete fire alarm system in the 4-door storage building. We're getting into cold weather where we're going to be putting all of our trucks, most of them inside. and boy, I'm sorry, it scared the living crap out of me if we have another truck catch on fire and it would be inside that building without a fire alarm system. I'd like you folks to approve something to get this thing going before it gets cold, so we can get this done.
Okay, I was just showing you that one project, the fire alarm project that was attached. I'm not exactly sure if you want to recommend anything right now, or you want to wait until either the 20th or the meeting in November. But it will take several weeks for any of these systems, including the fire alarm, for material to get available for SSA to use, and then a few weeks for them to schedule. So it's very possible that by the time we actually have it done, it wouldn't get built until 2022 anyway. The problem is that all the stuff that's in the capital budget has to be authorized by council before we can move ahead and spend the money on it. So that's the reason why Jim is asking.
I would like to consider the fact that this is really, we've had one demonstration of the potential for disaster, and I think this is really a safety issue. Can we advance that to this October agenda to approve that expenditure at least, so that we can get it into the pipeline, given that lead times are really long for things like this at this point? And we're already into, October, November. If you're going to be putting things into the garage, having that secured with an alarm system seems to be an appropriate precaution. I mean, it's a situation better safe than sorry, in my opinion. Marcus.
I agree with your suggestion.
Yeah.
I agree.
Bill Tomasic.
Yes, if it's priority, and it seems like it is with Mr. Thielacker, then I would suggest that he get on it right away. We have the money. We know we're going to allocate it. We know the cost. So just get him started moving on it immediately, because he considers it to be time of the essence.
Yeah.
So then we'll approve it. We've done this in the past. Put it on the agenda for the 20th, and we'll approve it then. But he can start on it right now.
Okay. Frank?
I just wanted to confirm, did Jim actually go out and secure estimates for this already? And
Yeah, we got an estimate from SSA, who did the complete building up there.
yep,
So
Do we need to
yes.
get 3 estimates for this level of a job?
I think we would, given the price,
Well,
right? It's above 10K.
Wouldn't-
The
No, well,
problem-
no, this isn't. This is $8,660.
Problem
Okay.
here is now you're talking about, we already have 2 security systems that we have monitoring the borough. Omega is still monitoring some things down at the old area, and now we have SSA up here and at the new. So if you start getting bids, you're going to end up with 3. And my recommendation is we already have SSA go with it,
Let's go with it.
because otherwise you're just going to confuse the situation. Now you're going to have 3 different security
That's-
companies.
That's okay, Steve. I was under the impression it was larger than 10K is all. So you answered my question. That's good.
Okay. All right, so I'll put that on under the agenda on the 20th. Does anybody else have any other questions about capital? If not, what I'm going to say again is I'll have this on the agenda for November, the capital budgets, for something to keep looking at. But take a look at the stuff that I gave you now, the yellow highlights in particular, and any of the new stuff that I gave you already, plus the stuff that's attached to your notes. So now let's talk about the budget. If you're okay, everybody's okay with that?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and give you some highlights of what I've given you. Now, I'm not going to read all the information I have here, but let me just highlight a couple things I have on. Maybe I should share this too, so people see it. The things that I have on the here under your notes for budget preparation. This is a draft first. It's a draft of the budget. And I know there are going to be changes that are going to occur. You have to realize that I have to get to a point where I sooner or later stop what I'm doing and prepare a budget. it takes a long time for me to put all this stuff together. And so I stopped in late September with what I have. But I know there are going to be things that are going to probably change this budget between now and the November Finance Committee meeting. And I have a couple of examples on there. I'll just mention one of them briefly, and that's the fact that we're going to be discussing pool and tennis fees under Committee of the Whole. That's going to change the budget. Okay. You can read the other things I have on there. There's probably more things that I'm missing. I don't think anything's going to change the budget to great extent, except possibly the fact that we did have the police arbitration come in, and that's something else that's going to be talked about in the future as well. And that those salaries may change a bit. So in any case, and I'm sure the taxable assessed value will continue to go up too. So those are some things that are going to change the budget between now and the meeting in November. And I should mention, by the way, that if you remember, originally I was not going to be here for the November meeting, but our trip has been canceled because of COVID and because my granddaughter is not eligible for a vaccine yet. And she would have to have it because it would endanger her life if she caught COVID. So sometime next year, we're going to do this again, and I'll try to let you know more about that. But I will be here for the second draft of the budget. Okay. What I'd like to do is, show you a brief presentation that I have put together like I did last year on using PowerPoint. Oops, you know what? I think I'm sharing the wrong screen. Let me go over to here. No, that's not it either. Sorry.
We did see your slides,
All right, you do see a slide there?
Yes,
and now we
Okay.
see your presenter thing where you
Yeah.
have the second slide next to it. But it's-
October
20
12th budget summary.
All right, are you seeing the one with the black around it, or are you seeing just the full slide on the screen?
No, we see the
No, we see
presenter
black
thing.
around.
You see
I
black
see the
around
next
it?
slide. on the
Yeah, I
slide.
don't want to do that yet. All right, I'm sorry. Hold on a minute. There we go. Now I have it. Okay,
Yeah, now we have
Um,
full screen.
now you have what?
Full screen, like that's what you
Full
want.
screen,
One
okay.
slide.
So this is the summary of the budget. What I've summarized for you, and this is all in the printed material I've given you. This is just highlights to try to make it easier. The general fund budget is now 6.67 million. That's a 3.5% increase compared to 2021. Corrective action, 2.4 million. Road improvement, 418,000. And that could change, by the way, depending on how much money we have left over. At the end of the year, there might be more money that could do roads than what we have, what I'm showing there. Liquid fuels, 385,000, fire protection, 248. And the capital improvements plan, I already just showed you that. We're just representing 2022 only. Okay. That's, like I said, a 3.5% increase compared with 2021. And that's due to a couple of things. First, healthcare costs only increased by 1%. Workers' comp costs did increase somewhat substantially, $1,000 a month. We've seen worse, though. We've had worse increases than that. The taxable assessed value increased. I'll show you that in a minute. Bond refinancing created debt service savings in the first 2 years, 20 and 21, but now we're paying full debt service. I just want to make sure I emphasize that. There's nothing wrong with this. This is what we were paying before we refinanced the bond issue, and it's about equal to or less than what was like before we refinanced. It's just that this is the first full year of payments. 2020 and 2021 were not the full year of payments. The fee resolution has some uncertainties. I don't know what's going on with the trash fee. I don't know where the contract is. I've stuck estimates in there. I have no idea what to tell you what the trash fee should be, though, until I see some numbers from the bids that are going to come in. There are other things I've noted on the Finance Committee report that you can take a look at. What you should review in the budget message, you should take a look at the summary of the effect of the pandemic because it continues this year. You should take a look at the new and deleted budget item, just so you know why some things are disappearing and other things are appearing for the first time. And then I do have a summary in my budget message of the other budgets, fire, roads, liquid fuels, etc. Library is one other example of something that may change depending on what you want to do. A letter from the library came to me today after I already had the budget approved. I'm sorry, finished, not approved. The first draft finished. And I had put the same contribution in there as was in 2021. They're asking for a several $1,000 increase. You'll see the letter attached to your agenda. I'm not going to refer to it right now. 2022 taxes, including Act 511, seem to be increasing. I'll show you that in a minute. And I also have some comments on current millage in the budget message on page 11. Not asking you to raise the millage, but I am talking about some things you should start considering about maybe raising the millage apart, a tenth, 2/10, a half down the road. You need to start thinking about some of that based on some of the things we were talking about already. And you probably need to put together more of a plan, and you need to really take a hard look at the capital improvements plan over 5 years. A couple other notes before I show you some numbers. State aid, we received more state aid than budgeted. So when you look at your budget for state aid for 2022, I raised the estimate significantly for how much I think we'll get in. Okay. We have covered any difference in the pension reserve funds. We'll do the same with 2022, but if you remember, those numbers did go down somewhat. So we're better off than we were in 2021. I wanted to point out with the fuel fee, we charge 25 cents per gallon for those communities, those entities that are not Forest Hills entities when we bill them. So for example, the current price of gas that we have in the tanks now, and this fluctuates, is $2.53 a gallon. We bill I don't know, Wilkins, if they're down here, $2.53 plus 25 cents a gallon for their gas. I'm not necessarily saying that that should be increased, but I wanted to make sure you were aware that this was established over 20 years ago. And if you're going to get serious about talking about it, I need to give you some more information. And I really don't want to go into that right now because I don't want to go into it right now, but you need more information if you are thinking about increasing it. And I would explain what I mean about that separately in a different situation. And there are a lot of reasons why it's good to have people using our tanks. Jimmy would point out a bunch of things. We talked about that today. For example, if nothing else, it keeps new gas and new diesel going into our tanks and going through rather than having that sitting there for weeks and then having only us use it. So that's a very positive thing. It also allows us to use the tanks ourselves. What's the advantage of this? The advantage is that if we didn't do this, we would have to do a lot of paperwork to Liquid Fuels to get reimbursed for how much tax we paid if we went over to whatever the gas station is. I'm not down on Ardmore anymore. I'm pointing over to Ardmore, but anyway, we would have to pay regular price at the pump and then submit a lot of paperwork and receipts, et cetera, to get reimbursed for the taxes that we paid, because we shouldn't have to pay any taxes. So that there's advantages to being able to have other people using it. I just wanted to point out to you though that we haven't changed it in a while. Our real estate tax is based on the assessed value as of September 17th. That's the latest one I had when I started putting the budget together. Okay. For comparison, about a year ago was about 3 million less, approximately, a little bit less than 3 million less than that. The county had given us a certified value that was slightly higher in January of this year. And I anticipate that the certified value in January 2022 will go up also. But what I will do as we're doing various iterations of this budget is change the amount of money I think we'll get in taxes and give that to you in new drafts. The earned income tax collection, we did have an effect last year from the pandemic, but it seems likely we're going to exceed our current budgeted amount. So I don't see that as a problem either. And that's one reason why the biggest sources of revenue are ones at the beginning of your budget. And this is a part of the draft that I gave you right now. The real estate taxes, I'm budgeting 2.9 million. We've already took in 2.8, but I raised it by about 40 some thousand, as you can see, approximately. Okay, this number for penalty that we're showing how much we received year to date, but that number is always included here. That's why I show 0 here. We always show penalty and regular in one number. And I could go into explaining that from years ago. I'm not going to go into that right now. If anybody wants to talk about it, we can later. But if you look at other things, real estate prior years, we're getting way more in 2021 than we budgeted. Same thing with lien costs. Same thing with deed transfer tax. Earned income tax looks like it's going to hit 975,000 or more. We're already having 831,000. Local services tax is close to the budgeted number. I think we're going to hit that budgeted number. The only number that is a kind of a big number for revenues is the cable TV franchise, and that's probably going to be going down over the years. So I put that in there just as a reminder, but I think it'll still be around the 140,000 that I have in the budget right now. So these are your major revenue sources that are in the budget, in the draft that I gave you. Anybody have any questions about revenue before I talk about expenditures?
Yeah.
And I can't see you if you raise your hand because I only have a small screen showing pictures. So just talk. Anybody have anything about revenues? I know you're just seeing all this for the first time.
I'm good.
Okay. So expenditures, salaries are based on current contract agreements with an estimate for the police contract because we did not have the arbitration settlement at the time I did this. We have it now and we'll change that, but I did not have it at that time. Part-time, non-union, full-time salaries, all that stuff will be shown in the budget book. And I show you in here for part-time employees and non-union employees, the estimated salary rates we use for 2022 on the next 2 pages. This chart is in my budget message, okay? This chart is in my budget message. So you can take a look at it. And it's similar to the chart that's on the website now. It's just, of course, it shows an increase in budgets. And I listened to what you told me, for example, about public works part-time. We raised those hourly rates. If you compare on the previous page with the pool, which you were saying, for example, was a little bit skewed in favor of pool, it's not anymore. Okay, so you might want to take a look at that. I did include the second assistant swim team coach, if assuming they need it. I did not put a second synchro in because they said that was not necessary. But everything else is what these numbers that you see are what the budget's based on as far as salaries are concerned.
Hang on, I think you have a typo or something. Can you go back?
Go ahead. Where?
The second swim team coach, shouldn't that be 22,207, like the first one? You just use the same number like in 2021.
The second synchro coach.
No, second swim team coach. That should be the same number.
Tentative second assistant.
Oh, this one down here? Well,
Yeah,
we didn't have an assistant in 2020. We didn't have a second assistant in 2021. So I gave them what we were paying the assistant in 2021 rather than give them the same number as probably a person coming back to work for us would get. I thought it made sense to give them a slight raise. I'll change however you want though. If you don't like that we can change that, but that's
No,
why I did
I
that.
think that makes sense. Yeah, to give a first year person a first year salary.
Okay. Some of the key general fund expenditures, the 2 pension plan numbers went down with the MMO that you saw. Refuse and recycling, I put just a ballpark estimate in there for both revenues and expenditures as far as the contract cost and the amount we were getting in fees. I don't know what to say for that right now. It did not change tree pruning or removals. And that's one reason why I was talking about the trees the way I did back under planning and zoning. Swimming pool, I estimate the expenditures are going to go up And if you are we're gonna talk about this in committee of the whole, but if there are gonna be changes in pool attendance passes, that's gonna affect revenues overall as well. And by the way, just in case anybody's thinking about this, because somebody had said this to me once before, no, you don't separate the swimming pool out into its own fund. No, you do not do that. Not unless you're running a for-profit enterprise. If the swimming pool is something that you're going to do for profit, then you make it its own fund, but not here, no, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to afford the pool. You'd have to have some other plan in place. Transfer to capital improvement plan. That's the one that I showed you with all the yellow highlights. That I estimate is going lower. And you can see the debt service is significantly higher. Again, it's higher, not because there's anything wrong with it, not because there was something wrong with the refinancing, because the last 2 years were lower because of the refinancing. This is back about where it should be based on the previous debt service schedule. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that. Chuck had given me some numbers for the police car rotation, so you'd have that information. That's also in the budget message I give you, so you have a hard copy of that there. And there's 2 other things I want to talk about briefly, then we'll see if you have any other questions. Budget reserve, we're meeting that pretty much. Your policy is 7%. Whenever I talk to S&P for the bond issue rating, one of the things they asked was, your budget reserve is 10 or 15%, isn't it? And I said, no, our policy is 7. They wanted to see it higher. And if you remember, the state does recommend the bottom bullet that I have there, that it could go as high as 15%. That information is also in your budget message. You can read that detail from the state. I'm not going to go into that right now. Pause though, we're a little bit over the 7% that's in your policy. I'm not showing a large number going in from 2022 budget into the reserve. I'm only showing 15,000, which would take your reserve to about 7.6% of the 2022 budget. Okay, so it still would be higher. It's high right now at 7.34% of the projected 2022 budget. And if you add 15 to it, it's a little bit higher than that. You have a second reserve account. That's the capital reserve that you started a few years ago. And it was to be achieved gradually, getting to 250,000, not to get there right away. So I only put a small amount in 2022. Your capital reserve right now is 103,000 plus. So we'll take it to 105,000, assuming you don't spend anything from it. What's the capital reserve for? It's for anything you want it to be, as long as it's a capital item. Right now, it's just savings. It's for an emergency. But just like the budget reserve, you could touch it anytime you wanted to. A lot of communities do that. They go into their fund balance and start spending it down. They go into their reserves and spend it down because they don't want to raise taxes. It's not a good idea, but it's something you can do. And there certainly are a lot of legitimate reasons to do it, including because maybe you don't want to raise taxes. That shouldn't be the only reason, but that could be a reason, certainly. So those are highlights of the budget message that I've given you. In the notes I've given you, my budget message is about 40 some pages. It's very long. I gave you every spreadsheet that
Steve,
I had.
did you give us the budget message already? I didn't find that in the handouts.
Yeah, it was sent to you.
Oh, okay. I have to find it. It wasn't in the handouts that I saw for the meetings. Frank, you had your hand up.
I'll share it. Frank wanted to ask a question. I'll share it in the meantime.
Right.
It looks like
From an accounting standards process, Steve,
yeah.
are the capital reserve and the budget reserve, are they viewed as one big bucket of dollars?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Well, I mean, not together. Capital is separate from budget reserve. Capital.
So you indicated that the recommendation was, hey, between 5 and 10, but you should err on the side of getting it closer to 10, right?
Yeah, if you can, but that's 10% of the general fund budget, just so you know.
I see. Okay, so it has to be part of the general fund.
There is no target for capital reserve other than what you make the target.
Got it.
So that's up to you.
So then, so 467%. So like more like 650K. 50K would kind of get us in that 10% range, correct? About.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
S&P had no problem with us at 7%. In fact, they were okay with everything I told them. I mean, there are other things that are going to be happening over time, some of which you'll talk about in committee of the whole, that could affect it, you know, but right now we're stable because there's nothing new, nothing different yet.
Got it.
This is the budget message, what I'm showing you on the screen right now. Everybody should have gotten this, and it's all the detail from the highlights I just gave you. Here's the highlights in the one slide I just gave you, how much is in those things in each of the categories. Here's some of the changes that are coming in the line items that are either eliminated or that are added. Okay, and I try to put as much detail in this here as I can, not because I'm trying to confuse anybody, but because I want to make sure I say everything that I think needs to be said. I assume you're not going to read the whole thing, although it'd be nice if you did.
Whole thing.
But I assume that, like, if you have a question about the real estate tax or the earned income tax, you're going to go to that section in my budget message and take a look at my comments. This page right here is where I have information about why you might want to start rethinking your tax, your millage rate. Not again advocating anything. Like right down here, the swimming pool is old, requires constant maintenance. Pool lodges used by renters requires attention to remain attractive. That's true of the rec lodge too. And you go on and on and on with a lot of other things. One reason, I've said this before, one reason too why you guys are okay on cash is you also don't spend on some things. Maybe you need to start looking at spending, not everything that you have in reserve, but some of the things to perk up some of the different parts of the borough. Go ahead, Frank.
I was talking with Angela, and I apologize because this is going to appear to the council like I'm just throwing a grenade out on the table. This is something that needs to be vetted by council and discussed, but this kind of ties back to Bill's committee earlier. But if we have some additional funds that we can spend, or I believe there is an arborist that now resides in our community that Angelo Baiocchi knows. And I didn't even bother to see if he's actually in the audience tonight on Zoom, but we might consider.
I did reach out to him. He is an employee of Bartlett Tree.
Yeah, he's a Bartlett Tree employee. Right.
I left him a message. He didn't get back to me yet. I called him twice. He's pretty busy right now, but I will continue to try to reach.
But that might be an area worth exploring if the guy would be interested in working for us part-time, because it sounds, or at least have him come in and maybe do an assessment, right? Because it sounds like the trees are kind of getting, it seems like I'm just hearing more and more, and I'm sure everybody on council is in the same boat. They're just hearing more and more about trees are just, they're dying or close to dying. And, we just, I hate to say it, we took Ted for granted.
Yeah.
Bottom line is he was a world-class arborist, and we really didn't, we just knew that it would be handled, right? So it might be an area to maybe poke around in.
That's also a good point though to raise right now in this budget discussion. And that's the thing that Dawn talked about with tree and shrub and their recommendation. And for that matter, we're going to talk later about pool and tennis and recommendations there. These kind of things are things that should not be being planned right now. These are things that people should have been talking about back in February, March. If you think that we need to spend $500,000 on trees, which obviously, according to Mr. Corbett, we can't do, but if you think we need to spend so much money on trees, you should be talking about that January, February, and getting ready for the budget then. If you want to change pool rates, if you want to change tennis rates, if you want to change building inspection rates and things like that, those are the things that you should be looking at over time, not waiting until the budget's being prepared. It used to be before I came here, and I'm not saying this is because of me, it used to be before I came here that everybody got together in December on a Saturday, and that's when they did the budget. That's stupid. And that's why we start in August. And really, everybody else should be putting together numbers for budget stuff way before that. Whether it's the planning commission or recreation board or whoever, environmental advisory council. It's not easy putting these numbers together, and it's not easy at the last minute trying to make changes. Especially when you don't know what the plan is, because you haven't really been talking about this plan for a long time. You're trying to condense it and rush it into a course of a week or 2 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that. Does anybody have any other questions for you about budget? It's a balanced budget. It's a first draft. If you see anything, I'd like you to make changes and send them to me by, let's say, the 20th. But I'm going to be making changes too, and giving you another draft in November so that you can pass a preliminary budget at the November business meeting. I'll tell you the truth, there's not a whole lot else to talk about with this budget. It's pretty standard based on every budget we've done in the last 5 or 6 years, which is probably something you guys need to start thinking about too. Should there be a better way of doing this? Should there be something more planned out that we should be thinking of? Not to drive everybody nuts and give everybody more work, but just should we be looking at things a little bit harder in January and February than we're doing now in October?
I would like to just mention that I did receive the preliminary audit report from Siemens just yesterday, and it may be helpful to look at anticipating significant maintenance and improvements rather than doing it when a truck blows up or something breaks, and trying to get a more regular anticipatory cost estimate for things. I did send that report to everybody. We can talk about it at another time. Mark, you have your hand up.
Can I add one thing to that first real quick? I agree with that, but that's again, one reason why we have a capital plan. And if it's not in the capital plan now, why isn't it? Where has it been and why haven't anybody brought it up? I'm sorry, Marcus, go ahead.
Marcus.
2 comments. I actually like our budget process. I think it's consistent and like over the years. So I think you're doing a good job. And I think it's good that we don't do major changes every year. We pretty much do like minute changes every year. And I like that since I'm on council, we never raise the millage. We never raise taxes technically. And the Siemens deal is not anything about next year's budget. I think it's something we actually start early and we will work on that next year. So I don't think the Siemens deal has anything to do with the budget.
No.
Okay.
But it may have some savings for us as we go forward in operational way.
We can always take savings, but it has nothing to do with the budget in that sense.
And other than that, I have nothing else to say about the budget. You'll see another draft coming. And I just have one more item on here if nobody has any more questions or comments. And the item I have is a repeat of that bond issue spending thing that Marcus had suggested, and we kind of sketched out a little bit for you. It's the same thing as before, except I added the note for truck 73 that you're going to vote on the 20th to go ahead and purchase that. We talked about that at Public Works last week, and nobody had any objections at the time. So that's going to be on the Public Works agenda to go ahead and purchase truck 73. I would suggest, again, with bond issue spending, you just keep this in front of you. It's part of capital spending, so you don't need to make an immediate decision. You have time, and just keep it in front of you. But I like what Marcus came up with. I think that's a good idea, and we should continue to review that. And let's do this piece next. We already did the backhoe, I think. We're doing the first truck replacement. Let's see what's left after that, and then look and see where you want to go from there, whether these other recommendations that he made are still worth doing, or there's something else you should
I think
add.
the Westinghouse back stuff we want to start sooner as well.
Right, yes.
Yeah, especially the Westinghouse Lodge improvements, because it is a revenue effect as well.
Yeah, we have some plans on, just real quick, getting Dave Gilland over to take a look at stuff Jimmy and I have. We want to get a company in there to clean the mold that's downstairs. You already know that one of the plans is to do the outer area of the building. We talked about that last week under borough property. That's already in the plans, and that would come out of this too. But we would not be able to do that until better weather. Now, again, we don't want to do it now where the weather might get bad. We want to make sure we're doing it in the spring. And Cindy's aware of that, so she can keep rentals down to a minimum so we can do things like that. But we are working on some of the other stuff too over there. Anybody have any other questions for me about finance? Because there's nothing else on the agenda.
Right.
No?
No, thank you.
Very good.
Steve. This,
Okay.
Thank you.
this is
I'm
a
gonna-
very, very comprehensive first budget, and it's significant to have it be a balanced budget at this stage. I think we need to look carefully at any major departures from this and try to keep it within the range that we have here outlined so carefully. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I'm going to get to committee of the whole in about 10 seconds. I hope if I can find it and haven't lost it. I haven't. Mr. Tomasic, I'm good to go if you want to start committee of the whole. Okay, manager's update. I'm not going to go into the reminders because those things are just placeholders, things you need to be aware of, but nothing needs done with them right now. The first item, consent order and an agreement, also called COA Phase 2. You may have noticed in your email last week, I sent you another copy of that because they made one minor change in a page. And rather than take a chance that somebody would have liked to have seen that, I just put the change into their packet and sent you the whole thing over again so you can see what the consent order agreement is all about. But this is something that really has to be approved on the 20th to meet the deadline that is, what am I trying to say? The deadline that Alcosan has set for us. And you would ask Bob Ziskow to provide a summary, which he did, and I've attached, and I'm going to share it on screen here too, of the key elements of the administrative consent order. I know you can read this, but I'll just highlight real quick. It works, it goes for 5 years. Okay, they developed a descriptive standard to try to use as a guideline for how to handle flow reduction projects in the future. And they explain that, he explains that in the 3 bullet points here. And he says it appears that Forest Hills is below the gold line standard. I'm not sure why he put East Pittsburgh in here. I'm assuming he sent this memo to both us and East Pittsburgh. Okay. We should be on target though. He didn't say there was any problem with that. Once it's executed, then we can once again regulate sewer taps on our own, which we don't have a whole lot of anyway. As he says, assuming that the solicitor is okay with this, and I know Steve Corbel and other solicitors were involved in drafting this in pieces at least. He's recommending, Bob is recommending that you approve it, assuming that Steve doesn't see any other issues or anything.
No, I'm totally fine with it.
Okay, so let's put that on the agenda for the 20th, please.
Okay.
Did all of the other members of our cohort sign this now, Steve? Do you know? Wilkinsburg was holding out.
No,
or-
that's a different, you're talking about a totally different thing.
one.
That's the regionalization plan. Wilkinsburg was supposed to be doing it. I don't know if they've done it yet. Bob was waiting for them. They said, yes, they were, but I haven't seen a final resolution of that yet. Now, as far as this is concerned, this is everybody in Alcoasn.
Steve, just put it on the agenda. It's good to go, okay?
All right, that's all I have to report. I'm done.
Solicitors report.
Couple things. Mr. Morris emailed a proposed ordinance which updates our dye testing ordinance with some changes that the administration requested to clarify that the borough does not was the borough or a registered plumber, so we made that revision. And then secondly, the borough wanted to also be involved in or alerted so that members of the public works crew would be present for any dye testing that was done in the avenues. And we made that revision as well under section 402. So that's in your packet. Happy to answer any questions or, as we go along. But in order to keep the ball rolling on it, I would suggest that we put a motion to advertise, and then it'll be teed up for November. So we'll have another opportunity to make any tweaks in that time period in the, month or so until the next voting meeting in November.
Okay, so that will go on the October 20th agenda as well for advertising.
Yes, that's my suggestion. Yep. On the agenda, there are two items. One is the coal tar ordinance, asking me to weigh in. I do believe that the borough has the ability to regulate this. Some solicitors do not believe that. I believe that we do have the authority under the health, safety, and welfare provisions of the borough code. This is an item that is not regulated by the DEP or others, and that's why local communities are filling in. There's two approaches. Well, I'll say three approaches at this point that have been undertaken by other communities. One is an ordinance which outlaws it and creates a fine system. Fox Chapel has passed that ordinance, and one of my other municipalities, Aspinwall Borough, has passed that, as well as others. Some other communities have passed a resolution, which is not a law. It can't be enforced, but it's a statement from the municipality that, using these types of materials is, we don't permit, we don't want you to use that. We would encourage you to investigate otherwise. So more of a statement of council opposing these products. And then third, on other communities like McCandless, they are not taking any formal action other than providing resources on their website in order to educate folks about the problems with these coal tar and that other products should be used. But again, not taking any action. So I've seen sort of the and some communities haven't done anything when asked to do this. So I've seen them all. I think you can choose whichever you like from whatever policy position you as a community would like to take.
Does anybody have a position on this? Should we follow what was it, Aspinwall, who has it completely eliminated? Is that correct, Mr. Corp?
Yeah, Aspinwall and Fox Chapel. I will also say that these products, these coal tar products that are being outlawed, they are not typically for sale at your Home Depots, your Lowe's, those sort of things. These are usually independent contractors that drive around. They'll like roll up to your house and ask you to seal your driveway, that sort of thing. More of a transient business model. So.
Okay, so could we please get a hold of what Aspinwall has put into play, and maybe we can simply use that as a guide for putting this into Forest Hills. Would that be acceptable to everybody?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. This is Jack.
I think I'd accept the recommendation of the Environment Advisory Council, and I think we should put some information about this out for people. And I don't think we use any of these products in our own paving activities. Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't believe so, but we can get the ordinance from Aspinwall and we can just follow that. Okay,
Yeah,
so how about if we make that contact?
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is a request for a community garden. And I'm not 100% sure on what the question is here. This is the 2 lots on Barclay, labeled 617. I don't know if somebody can provide some color there as to what the question or legal issue is that you want me to opine upon.
I really don't know. As far as I can tell, they were asking for us somehow to assist them in some way in terms of purchasing these. I think it was associated with taxes, et cetera. But I really don't know what the actual position was that they want us to take, other than the fact that they were seeking assistance in terms of being able to purchase them. And, everybody I think on council at least understands that generally speaking, the largest amount of taxes and the government agency you have to go through is the Woodland Hills School District. So I would just simply recommend that that's where they go to if they're interested in purchasing these lots and somehow getting them without the taxes or whatever it was they were trying to put forth.
Yeah, Steve. Oh, sorry, Bill, if I could just, yeah, I think they specifically asked about the vacant property recovery program from the county. And I believe you'd have to be a neighbor anyways, a direct neighbor to acquire those lots, no matter what, correct?
Yeah, that's typically the case. I haven't really seen it where someone can swoop in from wherever and buy vacant lots. So under that program.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess one of them could be the neighbor since they all live in that area, potentially. They had a whole bunch of questions that we thought you kind of need your help with. So,
Well, if they would like to ask questions about the vacant property program, that's a county program that they have to apply through the county, and then the county kicks the documents to us after they review it. So I would send them there if that's what they wanted to consider. They'll answer their questions there at the county.
Oh, okay, then we can send them some type of notification through an email telling them that was the recommendation from our solicitor.
I think that's all I have here tonight. So that's the end of my report, unless somebody has something else for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Corbel.
Yep.
Moving on. The first thing we're going to attack here is an audit report that was done by a professional firm, and their contact was Tony Montanaro, who we're going to give the screen to here shortly for this report. But before actually getting into it, I want to give a brief outline in terms of how this all came about. So earlier this year, the borough was questioned about the workman's compensation insurance. And as you can see, our rates are going up $1,000 a month. And I think, we have had problems with the cost of our workman's compensation insurance companies. And they could not understand, and neither could I, about what was going on with the people that were on the workman's comp and why there was no movement. I also got some questions and comments from our public works employees asking, how is it that somebody who's not working can actually get more pay than they are when they come to work every day? And that just sort of blew my mind. I had no idea what they're talking about. But putting these together, it started an investigation on my part. And what I did was started looking for language that dealt with this stuff and examined some payrolls. So Mr. Morris, if you could please, I'd like you to put up what we found in terms of the ordinance that was in place at the time. Could you do that for me, please?
It's up now. Oops. Bill, you're muted.
I can't see the 60 days on the screen. The ordinance specifically says.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Right here. There we go.
If you read this, it says temporary disability suffered by employee, et cetera, will have a continuation of the regular salary or wages for a period of such disability, but not in excess of 60 working days. We repealed that last month or 2 months ago, whatever it was, because we thought it was being abused and we thought it wasn't properly being used by the borough, because we had one employee who ended up going from a little over 2 months to over a little over 2 years in terms of collecting this, which is in direct violation of this ordinance that we had in place. That ended up costing us over $40,000 for just one employee. So this person who was on workman's comp was getting 2/3 of their pay and then 1/3 of their pay for us, which made them whole for 2 years at a cost to us, the taxpayers. And as I said, at over $40,000. And this is just the one example. There are many more here that are associated with this in which we believe people were overpaid. But I know for sure this amount is accurate. Okay, during that time, we were also paying their health care insurance, which is about another $18,000 a year. Okay, and we started looking at this stuff and found out not only were they getting this pay, but the taxes that were supposed to, by law, being taken out for IRS, Medicare, the Pennsylvania state, the EIT, none of that stuff was being taken out, which is what we're required to do. So we're in violation of the laws that are associated with the federal government and the state government and the local government. Mr. Morris, you can take that down now, please. So that presents us with a legal problem on our end, which is why we went to Mr. Montanaro and asked him to do an audit so that he could explain to us what we're going to have to do to take care of this problem, which we are in violation. So that being said, Tony, if you would please.
Hello, Council. I appreciate you all allowing me to speak tonight about this topic. I am going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint I prepared that just basically summarizes the key components of the report. So let me know if that if this presentation is showing for everyone.
Yeah, it's up. And I would ask everybody, please don't interrupt Tony while he's presenting it. Any questions, please note them for discussion after he has completed his report. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. So just a brief overview of our firm. I'm with a firm called Lowe's Plumbing Company. We are a Pittsburgh-based public accounting firm. We provide traditional CPA services from tax to audit to consulting. We are currently celebrating our 100th year in existence. So, we're a well-known firm. We've been in the city for a long time. So my role is I'm a partner in charge of our consulting department, and that would include forensic accounting, litigation support, business valuation services, and other types of consulting engagements such as this one. My qualifications are I'm a certified public accountant in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm accredited in business valuation, and I'm a certified fraud examiner. And I have over 18 years total experience. So we were engaged by the borough's management, as Bill explained, primarily to perform three main functions. Number one was to calculate the total excess employee wages that were paid relating to these workers' compensation claims during the years 2014 to 2020, as well as the first 6 months of 2021. Number two, we were engaged to calculate the past due taxes owed on those excess wages. That would include primarily the payroll taxes owed by both the borough and the employee portion, as well as some state and local taxes. And then number three would be to estimate the penalties and interest owed on these unpaid taxes. Bill touched upon this already. The workers' compensation insurance benefits typically pay 66.6% of normal wages. These wages normally would not be subject to any wage or payroll taxes. And that reflects effectively that since it is a reduced amount of your normal wages, they don't want to further reduce that by charging taxes on it. However, what was discovered was that these employees were actually receiving 100% of their normal wages, with the additional 33.3% being paid directly by the borough. And on these additional 33.3% of their wages, no taxes were being paid either by the borough or by the individual receiving the excess wages. So this did seem unusual to us, and we did not investigate really. We didn't get into the cause of this or do any type of investigation like that. However, the process that was in place was consistent with the process as defined by the Pennsylvania Heart and Lung Act. So the Heart and Lung Act provides that any policeman, fireman, or park guard who is injured in the performance of their duties would receive the full rate of pay, similar to what we had just described. During this period, what would happen with their workers' compensation insurance payments is those checks would be forwarded to the borough, and the borough would deposit those checks and then remit to that employee 100% of their compensation. This was from our understanding and from what we've seen, this was the process that what happened with the non-police, firemen, and park guard employees that were receiving the excess workers' comp. Based on the results of our analysis, we determined that the total excess wages paid during the years that we analyzed totaled $120,963.52. The total additional federal, state, and local tax by the borough, which would include their portion of the payroll taxes, the employees' portion of the payroll taxes, and then any state and local taxes, which should have been withheld by the borough, would total $21,416.23. And then we also estimated that the penalties and interest owed as of the time we did the report was approximately $5,104. The borough's steps to remediate these errors would be as follows. Number one would be to file amended quarterly federal tax payroll returns for each of the periods impacted by this. Next, they would file amended state and local tax returns to report the additional income and remit any additional taxes and penalties on that additional income. And then finally, to file amended W-2 forms for each of the employees impacted to report the additional taxable income for them for each of the years. And again, thank you all for your time. And Bill, you can go back over to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're still up on the screen there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can take that down, or you could leave it up. So the first thing would be, I think everybody understands what's going on, what has happened, and what we've lost, what the problems are, and what we have to do to correct this. So I will start off by asking, is there anyone that would like to ask a question concerning this situation? Marcus?
That $120,000 we overpaid, by recollection, I think it went to 2 public works employees. Is that correct? The big bulk of that 120,000 went to 2 people.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. Please make sure that we sent out a report. We want to make sure that no names are used.
Yeah.
So if you
No,
refer
I
to
realize
it.
that. Just to make sure, basically 2 employees got it, and I think one of them is actually more than the other, so it's maybe 80,000 to one, 40,000 to the other, or something like that. But it's a lot of money we overpaid.
Anyone else have a comment or question for Tony? Other than that, because if not, we can cut him
Bill
loose.
Gore has a hands up.
Who? I'm sorry.
Bill Gore has a hands up.
Okay, Mr. Gore.
Yes, Tony, my question's for you. As I read this on the IRS website, I do not believe the compensation is actually taxable because it's not stated as in their contracts. So I don't believe that the excess that we paid, even if it was in errors, as I read and understood the IRS tax code, which this is what I used to do as well, it is not taxable, as it was an error on our part in paying them the 100%. So the extra 33% that we paid is still not taxable because it was not stated inside their contract that we were going to pay them 100%. We just went ahead and did so.
You'd be free to forward me anything that you've read from the IRS website. I will have our tax attorney on staff provide a detailed response.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so going back to you, Tony, real quick. Your analysis of this as a professional, being in this field for all these years, and your contact with all of the people that you work with at your firm, suggested and stated that these excess wages are taxable, and that's the key thing here. They're all subject to federal taxes, Pennsylvania taxes, et cetera. Am I correct that 33% extra in terms of the wages?
That would be correct. Nothing that we've seen would indicate that any type of compensation would be non-taxable on the IRS, based on the IRS regulations.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? If not, we'll cut them loose. All right, thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
So does this have to come into this year's budget now to pay out this reimbursement and fees?
No, what we're going to have to do is, if we follow the recommendations that he made, is we're going to have to go back and redo the W-2s. And that involves quarterly stuff, and that is going to have to be sent to the federal government. I'm assuming the state and local as well. And after we file that, when we get the numbers in, then we're going to have to pay whatever we owe with the interest and penalties, et cetera. There are different takes on this as to how much, but this will take some time for us to redo. We'll also have to send out the W-2s to the employees who received this. And I don't know where anybody ever got the impression that this money is tax-free. It's compensation that comes directly from the borough. There's nothing in a contract. There's nothing in a contract at all regarding this, which is going to lead into the next situation that I'm going to be talking about. So if there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next item. Okay, so that brings up the next item I have under the report from council, and that is the public works grievances. So when we found out that this was illegal in terms of the situation involving non-compliance with the IRS, et cetera, we moved to eliminate an ordinance, not a contractual item, but an ordinance item, which was done back in, as I said, 1971. And because not only are we getting, and I have to be careful about the language I want to use here, getting taken over the coals for people getting money that they don't deserve. They don't deserve it per the ordinance. All right, and they have to pay taxes on those monies. And if they want to get an attorney and say they don't have to, that's fine by me. They can get an attorney and fight with the IRS. I doubt that they're going to win. So instead of people saying, well, you know, I think council's been fair with us over the years, right? Let's figure out how to handle this situation. We get 2 grievances. So they asked me to look into it. I look into it. We correct the situation, and on top of that, we get a grievance. And it's my position, and we've discussed this in executive session before, and we will again in person on the 20th, by the way, just to drive that home. Okay, we have to deal with this situation. And I mean, technically speaking, what their position is as follows. And Mr. Corbo, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And that is that our employees can stay home from work based upon what their doctor says forever. They don't ever have to come back, and they can simply continue to collect workman's comp and the extra 33%, making just as much money as anybody else that comes to work every day. Mr. Corbel, would you like to?
Yeah, that's the position that their attorney is taking in the grievances. Yep.
Okay, so is there anybody that thinks that we shouldn't fight this grievance? Let me know on the 20th. Okay, now, any questions on the grievances at this time as I've laid them out? Okay, so the next item we have, and this would deal with Mr. Morris's budget. The police contract has been finalized and everybody has a copy of it. Does anybody have any questions on it before I comment as to the outcome? Okay, so the contract gives them wage increases of 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, 2.9. The salaries, the wage increases were one of the disputed issues that we had. Our offer was basically 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, 2.9. So the arbitration award basically gave us exactly what we were asking for, or what we were proposing, I should say. Secondly, we had the healthcare contribution, which goes from 3 to 7%. Again, this was one of the contested issues. We got exactly what we proposed to the union through the arbitration. And the third item that was contested was the part-time salary. we got exactly what we proposed, which was 60% of the patrolman 2 wage. All 3 of those items went in our favor. There were 2 other items that were uncontested. One was the uniform allowance, and the other was this distribution of overtime pay from an outside agency, which we agreed to right from the beginning. I sat in this room, which I'm sitting right now, and I begged these guys. I said, please just sign the agreement. This is as good as you're going to get. And no matter what I did, and I made changes, I even increased the amount that we were willing to give them on an annual basis to try to get them to say, okay, we're going to end this, we'll settle, and we'll agree to it. And they just wouldn't budge, especially on the part-timer. So we had to spend some thousands of dollars. They had to spend thousands of dollars. If they had to do it from their own fund, I don't know. And it all boils down to is, well, our proposal must have been a good one to start with. And by the way, if you recall, you as council sent me, Jack, Mike Palumbo to negotiate these terms. And that's exactly what we got. So I think we ended up in a good position. Okay, and again, here they go out and they get this Philadelphia attorney who I guess is supposed to turn things around. I don't know how. They bring in this guy. When he was done, I thought he was talking about Fox Chapel and not Forest Hills, to suggest somehow that we could afford 4 or 5% rate increases. I mean, it was just bizarre. And I know that guy probably cost several $1,000s for him to come in and do that presentation. So again, I don't know, just doesn't make much sense to me. Any other question? Any quick, Marcus?
Another comment, the part-timer is a huge, huge deal because now our part-time salary is linked to their own salary. So pretty much any future negotiation, any raise they will get for forever will increase automatically our part-timers. People who were on council at the time when we implemented part-timers, we tried to do top-notch salaries to attract good part-timers. But then since, I don't know, 5, 6 years, actually at the bottom with our part-time salary, we were just not allowed to raise it. And that the union is negotiating against their part-timers doesn't make sense to me. But now part-timers are linked directly to their salary, so we are all good. So it's a huge deal, I think, and very good.
Yeah. This is Jack. I just want to make sure the council is aware of how well we did in our arbitration. Essentially, we got out of arbitration what our final offer was that they decided they want to fight. They wasted a lot of money and some of ours too. And it is important for you to realize how well we did in this arbitration process. It's just a shame we had to go through it. That's my only comment.
I would also like to comment because I hear some of these, these rumors and so on, that there's a lot of acrimony when we get in there. That's not true. We sit down there, we talk back and forth, and Jack can attest to this because he was in the room. Although I don't know if that matters anymore around here, having a witness in the room to attest to what occurred. But Jack can say, we just went back and forth, and I truly thought we were going to get a deal. I truly thought we were going to get a deal and not go to arbitration, but it just didn't happen. Okay? All right, the next item, the shell font agreement that is up this year. And we have 2 parts to this agreement. We have the police and we have the public works. So let me address the police first. I've been holding off in terms of doing the deal or promoting it for passage here because I wanted to wait and see what the rates were going to be before we made a commitment. And there came in line with what we expected. And the police situation is one in which it's sort of like a hand in glove kind of deal. We have to go over there and we have to help out anybody in terms of arrests and so on, even if we didn't have the contract with these guys, is the way I understand it. And so for us to be over there and doing the work and getting some pay, not a lot, but some, to provide that service is sort of fits. It's not a bad deal. However, when we go into the public works, I don't know, nobody can convince me that this is any good for the borough of Forest Hills. Again, here we are giving our services, our manpower, our equipment, and the cost doesn't even cover one guy for a full year. Okay, and when you start getting, like, somebody says, well, what do these guys get paid? Well, like I said before, you throw at somebody the fact that, well, these guys at the top are around $60-some thousand, add in another $18,000 for healthcare, throw that $1,000 in that we have to pay extra for our workman's comp, and throw in the pensions and all that stuff. Somebody in the public works cost us probably well over $125,000 a year. So what we get from them and it is minimal in terms of covering what we actually do over there. And add the fact that, we have to lug 5 tons of salt in our trucks up and down those hills. And we have to provide it to them. And I see in the past our guys coming back totally exhausted, because not only do they have to do Forest Hills, but they have to do, Chalfont and Ardmore as well. And when Mr. Morris was talking about looking at things, I think we need to look at that and sort of reduce our footprint outside of the borough of Forest Hills. The one down there on the Ardmore, that's an iffy one. I don't really agree with that, but I am not going to propose that we pass that contract that we have at this time. I want to see how this stuff shakes out. And if we do, I would only recommend 1 year extension, because I do not want to lock into place the next council that's going to have new members coming on into any type of 4-year deal. Even if it's like a renewable deal, I would go for maybe 1 year and then say, okay, you guys can negotiate it with the new council and maybe put together a whole new contract. But that would be my recommendation at this time. We're in October. We have a couple of months. I think we should figure out what we're going to do by November at the next committee of the whole member meeting. Any questions? Jack?
I have a comment.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd like to see us just do the 1 year, and then next year the new council, I think, should really reevaluate where we are with that. At the very least, I think what we're charging is not covering our ultimate costs. I'll give you one example. We've got wear and tear on our trucks, but we have perhaps have another employee we hire. At some point, with that extra work, we may have an employee go into workman's comp, and there we are with increased costs there. So I think we should be much more aggressive in evaluating the real cost of that contract with them next year, and not just blithely continue as we've been doing.
Okay, Marcus?
I pretty much wanted to say the same thing like Jack just said. And I totally agree. Winter is coming up very quickly. I think it would be bad form if we would quit now. We have to do at least a year, so they are covered at least for the winter. And then the next council can look into it deeply, starting from the beginning of the year, so we have time to figure that out.
Yeah, well, we can contact them and say that we're unsure, and maybe they want to find somebody else. I don't know. But, I'll make sure that I contact them to get their thoughts on this. And definitely before the next committee of the whole meeting, where we should discuss this and make that final decision. Any questions or comments here? Steve?
Just one thing, we should probably have Wendy take a look at the new police numbers to make sure that whatever she input into the estimate for shell font matches the new numbers before. I don't think she's done that yet because we just got that. So,
Well, of course, that should be done.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments here? So we can move on. Okay, the next item we have here is the pool rates. We had a discussion on this, and I think almost every council member was in favor of a reduction of 50%. No one has said that they are opposed to that since we discussed it the last time. So therefore, what I would like to do is, just direct Mr. Morse to put that into the budget so that the tennis and pool rates are all cut by 50% for next year. Take a look at it, see what happens. The next council doesn't like it, they can move on and make modifications. But I think it's worth a try to get our residents in the pool. Marcus, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just to clarify, I think we are proposing to reduce like the Forest Hills Family Pass, all the senior pass, everything with Forest Hills, but we keep that sponsored family at the same rate. Like we will reduce pretty much everything else by 50%, except that outside families. And the other thing, Steve talked about budget. I think us reducing the rates by 50% doesn't necessarily mean that we will lose 50% of our revenue, because hopefully we will actually get more people, more taxpayers actually joining our pool. So I think if we reduce the rates by 50%, budget-wise, to be conservative, we should only say we lose 25%, because we will probably get more people.
Yeah.
Patty, you had a,
Yeah.
Patty?
I think we made, I agree with Marcus, but I think we also assumed there would be a marketing push to increase the number of residents from Forest Hills so that it would be revenue neutral. And I think we figured out what the number was. I don't remember what it is right now, but there would be a marketing effort by either members of the swim team or members of some way to promote the lower rate fee so that we get more people, and that would make it revenue neutral.
Jack, did you have
I agree. And let's just move forward with the 50% cut. It makes good sense, makes good business sense. So I think go for it.
Marcus, last comment, please.
Just to address Patty's comment, we agree that we will have free family pass for every Forest Hills family printed on a 3 City Times issue. So that was part of our marketing. So every family can go at least one time for free to the pool, and hopefully that entices them to buy their pass.
Tom?
Now, I know Chris Mamikos in the rec board's here. He's on the next item, but I think he was going to give kind of their all-encompassing opinion on the pool passes and the tennis prices as well, just so everyone's going to get.
We have them teed up,
Yeah.
and I'm going to let them speak. But
Mhm.
as of right now, I believe we have every council member that last time spoke for it in agreement that we're going to cut the rates by 50%.
Oh, yeah. No, I just wanted to include my opinion that I think I'm completely okay with that 50% cut. I think we should include with the purchase of a pool pass, tennis passes as well. If you get a pool pass, you also get a tennis pass, and then lower the price of tennis passes if you just want a tennis pass. I just wanted to.
Yeah. Well, we can go through those, those little parts piece by piece. But the statement was we were going to cut tennis and pool rates for the residents of Forest Hills by 50%. Are we okay? All right. So that's done. Okay.
You muted yourself, Bill.
Sorry. Chris, Steve, you want to get them up?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Chris Mamikos. I represent the rec board. First of all, I just want to mention that we love the fact that the proposal for the tennis program is to cut the cost of membership in half. And it's great that we're looking at doing that for the pool as well. There's one other ask that Mr. Thielacker talked about that we unanimously feel would benefit the community. And that's around any member of that joins the pool have access during the day while the pool's open to be able to access the tennis courts. Currently, we lock the interior gate. So during the day, our ask would be that when we open the pool, we open that interior gate that's in the interior perimeter of the property of the pool. Any questions or concerns about doing something like that?
I don't, but I am not involved in the process. What I would suggest is that you get something in writing, and if that's what you want to do, run it through your committee with Cindy Sim, present it to Tom, let him be your advocate at the next meeting. And I don't want to get into the weeds on that kind of stuff because I don't use either one.
Okay.
That sounds good, Chris. We'll work on that. I think that's maybe the easiest way to kind of facilitate that and be included with the pool pass. So.
Yeah, that sounds good. Outside of that, that's really all that we had to talk about. So any questions about the limited info that I covered for me? Okay, thanks everybody.
Okay, thank you. The next one, Beaver Drive. I really don't know what this is about. I need somebody to help me in terms of an explanation. We're talking about a private road, which we don't go onto, but somebody's talking about a washout and something about straightening something out. If somebody can help me, if Jim Thielack or Steve?
Oh, if Jim's here, that's fine. Is Jim still here?
Jim?
He actually just left. He didn't realize it.
Well,
That's okay.
okay, I know.
I didn't realize it either, Tom. Go ahead, Steve.
At Public Works, Jim had raised the issue that that there was a washout at the end of Beaver Drive, and some of the people who live up there had asked if we would do anything for it, even though it's a private drive. So he had asked council to consider that. He said the only reason why you might want to do that is because we don't service it overall, but it is access in case there's an emergency vehicle or what have you. But he wouldn't do it without having council say it was okay.
Okay, well, I think we just need some more information on that. And Jimmy can maybe at the next Public Works discussion explain that. In the meantime, I'll try to talk to them and reach out and take a look at the situation so I can understand what they're talking about. We did have something before where we talked about, I think, a road over by Berkeley in which we wanted to make sure we had fire department access. So if that is a situation that maybe we need to attend to, we could do that. But I would definitely like to look at it first before we make any decision about going on to private property. I think it would be safe if we're talking about public safety in regards to access to something, but I don't know the details. Mr. Corbel, would you comment on that?
Sorry, I was having trouble finding the mute button. I think this.
I thought maybe you left too.
No, I think that's totally fine. We need more information to decide if it's truly a private road. There are implications if we do undertake maintenance, et cetera. So let's get more information, and maybe it could be a executive session discussion point next week if we get enough info by then.
All right, thank you. All right. Mr. Gorl, did you want to say something? No. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're done.
Yeah, I'm ending the meeting. Good night, everyone. See you on the 20th.